My name's Victor Clark, and we are in the hills on the edge of Reporoa. Reporoa is generally noted to be a dairying district, but we run down out of the Reporoa ranges and we're just on the toe of the ranges. So essentially this is Class 6 land. Now it's not considered to be suitable for dairying, largely because the terrain is too steep for milking cows. However, I did see an opportunity to turn it into a mixed deer, sheep and cattle property, but that was because of the steepness. It presented a unique set of problems. Part of those problems was the tendency of deer to run fences and to climb hills, but just from observations over the years of deer, it was evident that deer, whenever they were stressed, would go for cover. I set out to do space planting of poplars. These are unionensis, but employing farm forestry ideals, I decided that even unionensis were worthy of pruning and just making into nice trees. But to go through the steps, essentially the farm was pretty well run down, and it required a complete reworking. So we started off with environment Waikato, did a scheme plan, and we fenced off all the conservation land that was considered sensitive, streams, wetlands, and very steep faces that were over the maximum of what was worthwhile for grazing. And I have to say, Environment Waikato were brilliant. They came to the party, helped us every step of the way, and it made it possible for us financially to be able to go on and do that retirement work. But from that position, that was the first step. The second step was to come and do space planting of trees to make it a much more congenial and what I believe is a more profitable situation for animals to be grazed. A lot of that is to do with reducing the stress level of the animals, also temperature control of the animals. All of them, whether it be sheep, cattle or deer, will use the shade and the shelter all the time to regulate their temperature. This very much relates into lowering the physical stress and obviously relates to profits in the animals. And we've had excellent results from that. 96% fawning is normal, upwards to 170% lambing and finishing all the lambs. So we're pretty pleased with that level. But I do believe that the integration of the trees contributes greatly to those performance levels of the stock. So that's an integrated approach between farm forestry, space planting, not forestry in the true sense of large blocks of trees, but the integration in a parkland or a savanna type of grazing, where the animals have this relaxed approach to where they live. And I firmly believe, and after 25 years, it's certainly proving that there is a strong response in the animals to that more comfortable environment. In total, the farm is quite small by dry stock standards. It's 170 hectares in total. 30 hectares has been retired, leaving us a balance of 140 of grassland. This gives us a comfortable 14 to 1,500 stock units wintered. Now the land is quite erodible. It was classed at that stage as 6E. It's probably on the extreme for animals that tend to move around and run. Much of it drains down into the valleys, so we've been very proactive in retiring and almost constructing wetlands in the bottom of the valleys by retaining the water, keeping the herbage to grow, and because of it being very erodible, The poorest land is actually in the bottoms. The richest land is up on the hills, and we go from extremely poor pumice land in the bottom to tiro loams on the hillsides. So it's a reverse of what normally you would think of. A lot of that is to do with the erodible nature of pumice. And coming off the Reporoa ranges, we also have quite a few late summer storms that set up pretty massive erosion problems. So the trees are absolutely vital in preventing those collapses in the valley bottoms. Because I was in my mid-40s, I didn't have a great deal of time to do what I wanted to do, so I had to be very ordered in the approach, or strategic in that manner. So as we did the conservations, they were done into evergreens, and this was blackwoods, and I've used cypress and Californian redwoods. But what we're looking at here is phase 1 and phase 2. The phase 2 being the poplars, which were space planted, and that was largely to improve the management of the deer so that they could be stressless and would fit into this much better. There is also, of course, the benefits for the sheep and the cattle as well, but the deer were the original thrust of it. And what we're looking at is a number of wet areas with the poplars planted, the soak areas, and up that valley. And it's been hugely effective in modifying the animals' behaviour. One of the things I should make note of is for the benefit of landscaping, which is just an aside that I'm interested in, is it is far more effective to grow the trees in groupings rather than mixing them. So the effect is enhanced by a larger block of blackwoods, poplars in a block, and then the Yunnan poplars in another block, and the blackwoods on the skyline. This greatly improves the whole landscape effect or visual effect from trees rather than mixing them, which tends to make it look quite scrubby. And clear areas between, which obviously for farming you want grassland, but it does look nice even to us as humans. It makes it more pleasant. The Kawa poplars are only about 8 years old, 8 or 9 years old. They've grown incredibly well. And I was able to use them through the 2008 year drought. Because they're space planted in the paddocks, they made an excellent source of supplementary feed for the cattle and the deer at that time. I'd prune a couple of trees for each mob each day. And it lasted us for a couple of months through a time when it was really difficult. And I did work out what it would have cost as supplementary feed. For us here, it would have added up to $16,000. So we had, without cutting the trees down, a direct financial benefit from having those trees. To a great extent, the idea behind me planting the poplars on a wide spacing like this was because of some of the impracticalities. There's very wet areas that flow down off the hills, and in the sense that if we were to fence off those areas, it ceases to be a worthwhile piece of land. So my feeling was, if I wide space planted these trees, then I could achieve a lot of the soil and water control and management within the land and still retain the grazing value of the country. Well, to date, that certainly has been what's happened. These trees are probably about 9 to 10 years old. And these are the ones that were very, very valuable during the drought year. We get a further benefit every year just from the leaf fall from the poplars. It literally every night when the leaves in the autumn with senescence, they fall out of the trees and the deer walk around and harvest all those leaves. So they're obviously very palatable and they think there's something very good in them. And certainly it seems to feed into the health of the animals.